感謝トーマス。
Double trouble. All the engines were very excited. They chuffed cheerfully and chattered as they clattered along the tracks. Today was the Fat Controller's birthday, and there was to be the grandest birthday party on Sodor. Thomas had a very special. He was to pick up the Fat Controller and Lady Hat for the party. As Thomas approached Maithwaite Station, he gasped. Ahead, he could see the Fat Controller already on the platform.
Cinders and ashes, I must be late.
Thomas pulled into the station. He was worried.
I'm sorry, sir. I thought I was early.
The Fat Controller turned around. Thomas gasped. The Fat Controller had a moustache. Thomas was so surprised he nearly popped a piston.
Thomas, my good friend, you're looking perfectly polished today.
Thank you, sir.
The Fat Controller chuckled so loudly his top hat wobbled. Thomas was puzzled. The Fat Controller never chuckled so loudly that his top hat wobbled, and the Fat Controller never called Thomas his good friend.
I know, Thomas. Let's go to the Whispering Woods. It's one of my favourite spots. We have plenty of time before the party. All aboard!
Now Thomas was even more puzzled. He wanted to ask about the Fat Controller's new moustache and why he was acting so strangely. But Thomas didn't want to look silly, so he decided not to ask. Thomas pulled away from Maithwaite Station and chuffed towards the Whispering Woods. Thomas puffed up to the Whispering Woods. Edward was there. Edward had brought children to visit the woods. Then he was to take them to the party.
Hello, Edward.
Hello, Thomas. You look worried.
Thomas was worried, but before he could explain, the Fat Controller climbed down.
Marvellous! What fun!
Please, sir. We can't stay long. The children mustn't be late for the party.
Oh, party smarty, Thomas. We have plenty of time. You worry too much.
And the Fat Controller strode off.
Hello, children. Who'd like a game of hide and seek?
Did the Fat Controller say a game of hide and seek?
Yes, he did.
And Thomas's wheels wobbled with worry. The Fat Controller played hide and seek for a long time. He was very happy. So were the children. Edward was puzzled.
The Fat Controller never plays hide and seek.
I know.
And what's that on his face?
A moustache. It just appeared. Today, the Fat Controller doesn't seem like the Fat Controller at all.
Just then, the Fat Controller came back. Thomas wanted to ask him if he was feeling all right, but he didn't want to look silly. Thomas knew that silly engines weren't really useful engines, so he didn't ask any questions.
We must hurry now, sir. We'll be late.
And so will the children.
But the Fat Controller wasn't worried.
Don't hurry the children, Edward. Let them play.
Edward was so surprised his boiler bubbled. Then the Fat Controller jumped aboard Annie and waved to all the children. Thomas's wheels clickety-clacked. He puffed and he huffed along the track. He knew they were late for the party. Thomas stopped at the junction. Suddenly, the Fat Controller jumped out of Annie and climbed up to the signal box.
I won't be a moment, Thomas.
Thomas was amazed. So was the signalman. The Fat Controller never came into his signal box.
Hello there. May I have a turn?
Thomas looked up. He saw the Fat Controller pull a lever. Then Thomas heard Gordon's whistle.
Cinders and ashes. Here comes Gordon.
Gordon had all the important visitors aboard the Express. He was taking them to the party. With a clang and a clatter, the points changed. Gordon and the Express were no longer on the express track. They were now on a branch line heading away from the party. Thomas heard the Fat Controller whoop for joy.
Hurrah!
Fizzling fireboxes. I must ask the Fat Controller why he's being so strange.
But when the Fat Controller came down from the signal box, Thomas didn't say anything. He still didn't want to look silly.
What fun! All aboard, Thomas!
Thomas raced towards Maithwaite. Lady Hat would be waiting. They were very late. Thomas was worried.
First, the Fat Controller had a moustache. Next, he wanted to play hide-and-seek with the children. Then he sent Gordon off the express line and away from the party. The Fat Controller is acting very strangely indeed.
Thomas puffed into Maithwaite. The station master was cross.
Thomas, you are late. The Fat Controller and Lady Hat had to go to the party in Bertie the bus. But Bertie hasn't arrived at the party. Neither have the children or the very important visitors.
Thomas was puzzled.
If the Fat Controller is on Bertie, then who is on board Annie?
Just then, Thomas's passenger stepped down. Thomas knew he had to ask the question he hadn't asked before, even if he looked silly.
Excuse me, Fat Controller. You don't quite seem yourself today. Is everything all right?
Thomas's passenger beamed brightly.
Yes, Thomas, but I'm not the Fat Controller. I'm Stallone Hat. I'm his brother.
Thomas was amazed. That explained everything. But he wished now he had asked his question earlier. Now there was no time to waste if he wanted to be a really useful engine.
Bertie must have broken down. We must find him right away.
The Fat Controller's brother was very excited.
Hurrah! Another game of hide-and-seek.
Now Thomas was stern.
No, Salome Hat. I have to work hard and quickly. Otherwise your brother's party will be spoiled.
Salome boarded Annie and Thomas puffed away. Thomas found Bertie the bus. Smoke billowed from his engine. Bertie looked very unhappy. So did the Fat Controller and Lady Hat.
Thomas, where have you been?
Just then, the Fat Controller's brother stepped down from Annie. The Fat Controller sighed.
Oh no, Loam. Have you been up to your old tricks again? Absolutely right, Topham. I've been having a wonderful time with Thomas.
The Fat Controller didn't think this was funny at all.
Loam, you have caused confusion and delay. We must hurry.
Thomas delivered the Fat Controller, his brother and Lady Hat to the party, just in time. The party looked grand, but Thomas couldn't stay. He had work to do. First, Thomas chuffed to the Whispering Woods. Edward was very happy to see Thomas.
Go straight to the party with the children, Edward. The Fat Controller is waiting. It was his brother, Salome, who was playing hide-and-seek.
Next, Thomas found Gordon. Gordon was huffing and puffing as slowly as a snail down a rickety branch line.
Oh, the indignity.
Hurry, Gordon, to the next express line. Race like a rocket to the party.
That made Gordon very happy. At last, Thomas chuffed back to the party. Edward and Gordon were already there.
What a wonderful party!
And it was. Everyone was laughing. Then Thomas and his friends heard something very extraordinary. The Fat Controller chuckled even louder than his brother, and that made Thomas happiest of all.
旅に出ようと遠いところへ世界中を巡ろうすごい冒険が待っているたくさんの発見が待っているトーマスたちの旅は続く